to the respective regional managers. He thereafter worked with Procurement Management Unit, TANESCO, Head Office in Dar es Salaam, Regional Manager of Umma, Manager Thermal Power Plants, and Manager to Kinyerezi 1 Gas Power Plant. Engineer Manda is well experienced in project management from small, medium, and large power projects, whereby recently he successfully managed and completed on time the first combined cycle gas power plant power project in Tanzania and East Africa with a capacity of 240 megawatts at Kinyerezi, Dar es Salaam. Currently, he is the project coordinator of a strategic national mega project called Julius Nyerere Hydropower Project, former Stigler's Gorge, with a capacity of 2,115 MVB megawatts, which is under execution as we are speaking now. Engineer Manga's role is to support the Tanzania Electricity Supply Company's business for effective and efficient supervision and management of projects and timely achievement of set objectives. Engineer Manda holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering from the University of Dar es Salaam and Masters of Business Administration from the University of Dar es Salaam. He is a Fellow, Leadership for Environment and Development from Wye College, London. Engineer Manda is a corporate member of an Institution of Engineers Tanzania, IAT, and a registered professional engineer with ERB since 1998. So without further ado, I have the pleasure to welcome Engineer Stephen Manda, who is going to make a presentation on he's going to make a presentation on the first item this afternoon, that is major hydropower project procurement in Africa, experience, challenges, and way forward. Specifically, he's going to talk about the case of Julius Nyerere hydropower project. Engineer Amanda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's very difficult to present after lunchtime, but I'll manage, and hopefully all of us will manage, and nobody will be sleeping. So, Chairman, I'll go on a general overview of what is happening in this industry, specifically the hydropower project, with regards to procurement and development. And then I'll focus on the presentation on Julius Nyerere hydropower project, which is formerly, it was known as Stigler's Gorge hydropower project. So allow me to just go through and I'll highlight critical areas, and as well as highlighting what are the achievements and what are the experiences and challenges we face. Basically, that will be the layout of the presentation. Just an overview, and then the process procurement with regards to hydropower project, and way forward. Basically, when we talk of hydropower project development, I'm thinking of procurement. There are critical areas that you need to look at, and the best or the critical areas are identification of needs and the sources of various materials for the power project development. So before you engage into the procurement process, the first aspect is identification of the needs. What do you need, and whom do you need expect to participate in the procurement process. So the entire supply chain risk and also other areas that will be surrounding the process that you'll be engaging to. So whoever is developing or owning this power project should look also on the climatic mitigation issues, climate change, the resilience, and also analysis of managing risks that are associated with procurement. As the part of the introduction. But in any other project, you have to conduct a SIA, that's environmental and social impact assessment, that's a SIA, looking at the biodiversity impacts. And also look at the governance issues regarding external and internal ones. But all in all, you need to also look at the communities around, how these communities will be affected. And special focus should be put on the community and see how the community can contribute towards what you want to achieve. Because if you don't consider the community around the project that you are focusing at, you might miss some important issues, which we go into the procurement process. After you are done, then you go to implementation, you face challenges, then it is a stumbling block. You cannot continue with the smooth execution and implementation of the project. So it is very important to utilize the local knowledge. Sometimes we're missing this. We just think of that we have been to classes and we know everything, and we forget the contribution of the local community, that they have been there living for some quite number of years. So if you can utilize them, then they can say, fine, this river was flowing. Sometimes during this period of the year, it is the flow is in this direction. So it is very important to utilize the local knowledge. Just an overview of the power sector in Africa. When we talk of African perspective, talk of access. If you talk of access, you're talking of 45% in Africa, and expected to be 59 by 2030. So how can we bridge this gap? You need to go into the mega projects, and the feasible one is hydroelectric power. Generally, this development is unevenly distributed in some few countries. If you talk of sub-Saharan Africa, if you go to South Africa, then you talk of 2-digit gigawatt, but the rest, sub-Saharan Africa is single digit. You talk of installed capacity of 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatt, 3 gigawatt. For those having 3 or 4, they are very few. But when you go to northern, they are a little bit higher. If you talk of Egypt, they are over, talk of 2 digits as South Africa and so forth. So this is just a scenario to give you the overview how this look like. What is the current status? This is a status of 2019 issued by International Hydro Power Association. You can see the installed capacity of the world is 4,200 tetrawatt. And most of this, if you look at the contribution from Africa, is minimum. And if you ask of the reasons, you might not get the reason, because we have abundant resources that can make us even contribute for increasing our installed capacity. Just let us see what happened in 2018. In 2018, the installed capacity of the world increased by 2,000. It's just 1.2 gigawatt, 1,292 gigawatt. And if you look at the contribution, Africa is very few, but the most is from Asia and South America. You talk of Europe also, but in Africa, minimum contribution. That's again the status that I was talking about. if you talk of the contribution, you see Angola, in 2018, they contributed 0.7 gigawatt. And this contribution is from hydropower. But if you go to other countries, it's less than 100 megawatt, not even 500 megawatt. It's less than that. That is an overview of the status of the installed capacity in Africa. I don't like to go, this is just an introduction. But just to point, an important thing is that in Africa, we have abundant potential whereby we can generate up to 1.5 million gigawatt hours per year. That contribution is around 12% of the world total potential. So you see what is the potential we're having, but the challenge is we're not exploiting this resource fully. I'm just talking on hydropower. I'm not talking of other sources of power, thermal, renewables, and so forth. The study shows that the technical hydropower potential in Africa is estimated at 283 gigawatt, which is 12% of the global technical potential. The contribution, if you look at the contribution of Africa with regard to hydropower, you talk of Inga, which is in Congo, in Congo River. This has the potential of 39 to 44,000 megawatt. If you combine this one, it's like you can use this for East Africa, the total of East Africa. You go also to Central Africa. So we have only one side. You talk of Inga. And if you talk of Zambezi, we have several power plants whereby the total is 12,000 megawatt, that is 12 gigawatt. And the one exploited is only Kaurabasa, 2 gigawatt, and Kariba, 1.2 gigawatt. So you can see the potential we're having in Africa, but exploitation of these resources is minimum. So it is a challenge to us how we can utilize this potential. But now in Tanzania, we have started. We have the potential of 2,115 megawatt. That is Stigler's Gorge. Now it's called Julius Nyerere. It's under implementation. I'll get you through. So it's also, we call also other countries to see how they can utilize this potential. And through interconnections, then Africa can have a wider network of interconnection so that we serve the purpose of raising the access of energy. I've already talked this one. You see the contribution of hydropower, the interconnection. If you talk of transmission lines, you talk of Zambia, Congo, South Africa interconnection. So with this interconnection and with the abundant supply of power from the hydros that I mentioned, then we should have access more than 59% by 2030. But it's who is going to dare to develop? Because developing a hydropower project, going into procurement process is challenging because you need financing, you talk of environmental issues and so forth. Let me go now to Julius Nyerere hydropower project. This is a 2 gigawatt power plant, which is to be generating this capacity on its completion. And it is in Rufiji River. In Tanzania, we have big rivers. You talk of Great Ruaha, you talk of Rufiji, Kilombero, and Pangani. And all these, we have hydro plants that are, others are in operation, but the bigger one is this one, Stigler's Gorge, which is called Julius Nyerere hydropower project. I just want to highlight that the idea of this started way back in 1970s. 40 years ago. Now we're implementing after 40 years ago. You can see what was the challenge, because the challenge is that first the capacity, the technical capacity of development, and also the financing of this mega project. It was not feasible by those days, but in 2017, it was decided from the government. That is the government support, because really our countries need the support for these mega projects. Otherwise, it won't be feasible. This is the purpose, whereby we want to generate power, but above all, we want to control flood, but environmental protection. This is the structure. TANESCO is employed on behalf of the government of Tanzania. The consultant, we don't have the consultant from Europe or from Asia. The consultant is from Tanzania. This is a local content. The presentation that was made this morning, that the local content cannot only, just don't talk of contractors, also we talk of consultant. And we are using the consultant from Tanzania. Employer from Tanzania, consultant from Tanzania, and really we are doing well. And we pray to make sure that we succeed. And good thing, the contractor is also from Africa. The contractor is Arab contractors and Al Swedi from Egypt. These are our fellow Africans. And then Sub-Saharan Africa, we have TANESCO and TANROADS. So we want to make it. And we are really proud of doing it, and we think, and we are determined to make sure that we accomplish this assignment. And just go to the procurement process. We started this procurement process in 2017, in December. It's quite unfortunate when we started. The first time we got only 4 bidders who responded, and unfortunately they were all non-responsive. We had to re-advertise again. Then we received 5 bids. When we evaluated, it's where we got the successful bidder, who is now implementing Arab contractors and Al Swedi Electric from Egypt. So you can see the challenge, because as I said, need identification from the very beginning is a challenging aspect with regards to what you want to develop. This is the submission that I said, and the value of this project is $2.9 billion. And it is financed 100% by the government of Tanzania. So if you don't have financing, you cannot develop this project because of other interests. And implementation is planned to be 42 months, including 6 months of mobilization. This is a scope. We are constructing a hydropower plant with technology of RCC gravity dam, whereby we will be impounding 33.2 billion cubic meters of water. It's a lake that will be having the coverage of 914 square kilometers. This is a scope. I don't like to dwell on this. I just want to go to the project scope, just see the milestone that we want to achieve. Commencement was on 15 December 2018, and we are determined to accomplish the tunnel by 2020, and the completion of the project by June 2022. And now as I'm speaking, the overall project completion, it is at 9.5%. So we started in December 2018. You can see where we are moving at. But this is so because the procurement process took into considerations all the required aspects for the successful completion of the project. Otherwise, if we missed from the procurement cycle, then it could have been a problem of first mobilizing resources and making sure that we move as we planned. Achievements, these are the achievements that we successfully completed 6 months of mobilization in June 14th this year. And also the payments to the contractors is timely done. What I'm saying, if you have the financing for these mega projects, it won't be a challenge. But if you don't have financing, you expect donors to finance, then there will be stringent conditions and you won't develop whatever you want to develop. Besides all your parameters, all your procurement process, all the transparency that you'll be having in your procurement process, but if you don't have financing, it is not useful. As I said, the challenges for major projects procurement process, first is requirements identification, because you need to know from the very beginning what you need, how you want to achieve it. So the first thing is need identification. If you miss this one, then your implementation will be having a big challenge. Again, on the environmental perspective, expect, specifically in Africa, expect that environment will be the hindrance to whatever project you'll be developing if you don't have your own financing. Because we had the experience from Kihansi, whereby there is a toad that was about to stop the project. But the government said, no, we proceed. And with Stigler's Gorge, that's now Julius Nyerere, there was kind of environmental concerns that was about to make sure that we don't develop this one. But due to the government commitment, and the commitment from Tanzanians, we say that we are going to develop this project with our own money, and then we can make it. Because this idea was there since 1950. That's why we say that this idea of 1950, implemented in 2018, these issues of environment was there. There was no any mention of that hydropower is not required, but now you're coming in 2018, you say it's required. So we say that we are continuing and support us to make sure that we realize this project. Another is financing of the project. If you really meet the financing of the project, then there won't be any challenges. But if you don't have financing, you expect from donors, development of this mega project is a big problem. Challenges again is on the support infrastructures. Most of the hydropower projects are at the remote areas, so you need to develop infrastructure like road, power supply, telecommunication facilities, and also water supply. So it's also a challenge that you need to consider in the procurement process. Stakeholders' interest, environmental bodies, international actors in this area. The local content capacity is a big problem in procurement process. Because in Tanzania, you cannot have the company that can really contest when it comes into the development of this major project because of this magnitude and also the technology involved. So the important thing is to look for the joint venture with other big brothers and see how they can unite and develop a project. So local content participation is very important, but this is an opportunity that can be utilized by local contractors, as it has been utilized by Tanro's consultants unit that is providing consulting service for this project. Other risks are hydrological uncertainties, but for Africa we have plenty of rivers and also tributaries, so it's not a big challenge. Capital investment, yes. Cost overruns due to time slippage, this should be managed well. Otherwise, if there is any time slippage for mega projects, basing on the magnitude and the cost requirements, if you slip, then the costs will increase and will be not manageable. So the important thing is to manage the project well. Negative public perception. You need, in the very beginning, to really get the public positive perception. If there's negative perception from the public, then it's a big problem. That's why we were saying, if you incorporate, you involve local players, the local people, and also whoever is concerned, then during implementation, you have a positive perspective, and then you'll continue implementing your project without any problem. Now I go to way forward. The way forward is just to build or to improve managerial and technical capabilities of people who are managing this contract, also who are dealing with the procurement process. If you don't have this capacity, it's really difficult. And how you build capacity is just to involve in how these major projects are being developed. The institutions or PEs, the procurement entities, should build the capacity of all those concerned with procurement of major projects, whether training and so forth. So capacity building is very important. Also, the advanced development of potential hydro projects is very important to Africa and Tanzania also, and East Africa. Also, use also the medium and small hydros. Why this? Because if we don't strategize and make sure that we have potential, we utilize the potential that we have for the development of our people, nobody else will come from outside Africa or outside East Africa to say, you brothers, you need to develop, here is the power supply, here is whatever you can say. So it is us who need to analyze and see how we can break the ice and then go outside the box. Conclusion, major challenges, as I said, is the upfront investment requirement. It's a cost, but you have to sacrifice. You do the cost-benefit analysis, and then you sacrifice that. In order to make sure that we go this direction, you need to sacrifice other activities and develop one thing, and then you go to other things. So upfront investment is very, very important. Procurement process. We need to build the capacity of all those dealing with procurement process, because procurement process starts from need identification until completion. It's not only awarding the contract, then procurement is done. No. It goes from awarding the contract, then the contract management until the contract is accomplished, that is, you have the project in place. Environmental issues are the high risk, analysis of the risks that are associated, environmental, commercial, social, economic, and so forth. This need also to be considered. And also, Africa, due to low access in electricity, we need development of major projects. So if we use transparent procurement, and if our governments are really dedicated, we can achieve the objective what we need to achieve of having more access of electricity to more percentage of our people in Africa, and in East Africa, and specifically in Sub-Saharan Africa. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and for the audience for being attentive. I was looking to all of you. Nobody was sleeping. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Engineer Manda, for a brilliant presentation, which has consumed more than half of the allotted time. But thank you all the same. Now, our next presenter is Engineer Dr. Ramadan Mlinga. According to the biodata available to me here, it says Engineer Mlinga is currently a lecturer of the University of Dar es Salaam in the College of Engineering and Technology. He is registered with the Engineers Registration Board as an independent consulting engineer dealing with project management and procurement, and with the Procurement and Supplies Professionals and Technicians Board as an affiliate member. But before this, Dr. Mlinga was the Executive Secretary of the Central Tender Board way back in 2003 to 2005. And then when PPRA was created, he was the first Chief Executive Officer from 2005 to 2013. He is among the founding members of the East African Public Procurement Forum. So, Dr. Mlinga, you have the floor. Ed, you have a maximum of 20 minutes.
Yeah, good afternoon. Maybe before I proceed with my presentation, I was part of the first, I think, 3 or 4 procurement forums. And when I look back in 2007, when we had the first East African Procurement Forum in Kampala, Uganda, and to date, I see that a lot of progress has been made. And let me take this opportunity to congratulate all those who have made all those from the 1st to the 12th East African Procurement Forum to be a success. My presentation, I'll present on contract management, challenges, and the way forward. That is my presentation outline. Brief introduction, importance of contract management, key aspects of contract management, monitoring PE's compliance with contract management, challenges, way forward, and some concluding remarks. In brief, contract management is a very important part of the procurement cycle, which ensures that the procuring entity gets what it has procured. But we find it's a stage which sometimes is not given adequate attention, and in the process you end up having unnecessary complaints of the parties to the contract. And we need, at the end of the day, if you have a good contract management, then you have a situation where users end up being satisfied with the product or services being obtained under the contract. There are a number of aspects which needs to be managed. On the part of procuring entity, of course, we are looking at quality products and services, timely delivery and or completion, but we also want completion within budget. But while we look at that, there are certain obligations that we need to play towards the service providers. One is timely issuance of instructions and approvals, because the one who is executing, he needs to be given instructions, approvals, so that he can proceed with the work or the assignment properly. But there is also the issue of timely payment, and later on I'll come back as this being one of the serious challenge or serious problem for government entities meeting their contractual obligations with respect to payment. But then there is also the issue of fair handling of claims and disputes when they arise during the implementation of the contract. Because of the importance attached to contract management towards attaining value for money, PPRA has been monitoring PE's compliance with contract management aspects in its compliance audits. And you'll find that in my presentation of the indicators that are used to measure compliance, indicator number 4, which is appropriateness of contract preparation, formation, and implementation, is constantly being monitored by PPRA. And based on the performance audits, I was able to track some information. Now, it's interesting because all what I have prepared was based on the reports of PPRA which are available on their website. I know there are some of you who are doing their studies, etc. There is a lot of rich information in PPRA's report, particularly those who are doing courses in supplies, procurement and supplies management. And going through the annual performance evaluation reports, one can get a lot of information, which to me can even certify research which the PSTB wants the candidates to undertake. So I based my analysis on annual performance evaluation reports from 2014-15 to 2018-19. In my presentation, when you receive it, because I looked at the results for compliance audits on procurement management, and what I realized is that continuously there has been an improvement. From initially in 2014-15, it was 70%, but in the last year's report, it was 81%. But then within the same report, under that particular compliance indicator, there are sub-indicators, contract preparation and formation, management of general contract and administration issues, management of time control issues, management of quality issues, and management of cost issues. In all those sub-indicators, also there is an increasing trend, which means that some effort is being made by procuring entity to improve on contract management. But also, PPRA is conducting value for money audits, and they have 4 indicators, and one indicator is on contract implementation and administration. And actually, I was, if you look at PPRA value for money audits, that indicator is given a weighting of 20. And my argument was, if you already have that indicator as part of the compliance audits, maybe we could change some weighting so that we give it more weight instead of 20%. Again, the results for the value for money audits, they also show improvement. But contract management also goes together with sound record keeping. So I also looked at how are the PEs faring when it comes to records keeping. And from the information I obtained from the annual performance evaluation report, again, there is PEs are not doing very well. Okay, you have it, the maximum was in 2015-16 when compliance was 72%. But records management is a very important aspect which needs to be given a lot of weight, because if you have disputes, if you have claims, it's very difficult to properly handle them if you don't have records. Now, I went to look at challenges of contract management. And one thing that I found is lack of proper contract implementation records. And this, I said, is evidenced by failure of PEs to fill in and submit to PPRA contract completion information disclosure form. This is the contract completion information disclosure form. And the way it is designed, and if indeed the PEs were to submit the information that is contained in that particular form, we'd have a lot of rich information about how various contracts are being implemented. Because, for example, it looks at what was the initial contract amount, what was the final contract amount, reasons for the difference between the tender award amount and the final, issues of delays, issues of variations, all the variations issued under the contract. If there were any claims, they need to be recorded. If there are deduction of liquidated damages, and so on. Issues of delayed payment. So this is a very good tool that if indeed the PE were implementing, would have a lot of rich information about what is happening out there. But there are other common challenges, particularly obtained from the annual performance evaluation reports, includes failure of contractors, suppliers, and consultants to take or maintain insurance against risks contrary to contractual requirements, failure to submit performance security stated in contracts, failure of PE to appoint project managers, lack of knowledge and skills in contract management, and this leads to project managers not to exercise professionalism in dealing with matters that affect the contractors or service providers, particularly on issues of certification of payments, handling of claims, as well as termination of contracts. There are some others, delays in commencement of works after site possession, non-preparation of quality assurance plans for projects, lack of evidence for site meetings, both kickoff and progress meetings, poor supervision of projects, and payment for non-existing or shoddy work. Then there is the issue of delayed payments. This is a serious problem, and unfortunately, it seriously affects the service providers. It makes them fail to meet their contractual obligations, and sometimes this makes even the implementation of projects a bit complicated. Then there is the issue of, although this is not the delayed award beyond the validity period. Normally, there is a lot of delay, and sometimes when the contract is awarded, you find that the prices that were given in the tender are already not sufficient to meet the tenderer's obligations under the contract. Now, what is the way forward? Successful implementation of contract depends on sound preparations. We therefore need to observe the following. First is in our tender and contract documentation. They need to be fair and adequate to effectively serve the particular contract strategy avoided. So we need to avoid ambiguous, overworded, or contradictory documents. And what we put on paper should be workable in practice. Then, particularly, proper examination and review of specifications and drawings, because this is where we have a lot of problem later on with respect to variations, with respect to the need to extend project implementation period. So we need to look at those, make sure that they are as complete as possible before we go out to tender. Then the second is on the tender award. The choice of a good contractor or service provider with an economic and realistic price requires no emphasis. No good contract management can enable an abnormally low price tender to be executed timely and within the required quality. If you have a low price tender that is doomed to a failure, you cannot revive it and make it successful. There is also the issue of giving bidders adequate information during the tender process, because it enables them to prepare realistic tenders that has taken into account all potential risks and so on. Realistic estimates. We have a big challenge when it comes to preparation of estimates. And if your estimate is wrong, then you may end up selecting a contractor that you think is within your estimate, but you and the contractor or the supplier are both wrong, and therefore, again, it makes implementation difficult. Those were initial preparation that you need, but now when you're already in a contractual situation, it's important for parties, if there is any problem under implementation, to make sure they resolve issues as quickly as possible and using amicable means, negotiations, and so on. Finally, there is the issue of establishing good working relationship. From the very onset, it's important to establish good communication and to ensure a sound working relationship. With good working relationship, parties can amicably resolve most contractual problems. And I think I've put there that a well-organized kickoff meeting, which brings all the parties together, where roles and responsibilities are discussed, is important. And we tend to skip this. People they have a site, rush to the implementation without actually sitting together and looking forward and agreeing what are the key issues, roles, and responsibilities. Timely payment to contractors. Most problems of contract implementation, particularly for local contractors, are attributable to delayed payments. I was involved in some contractors forums where they were even proposing, because if you go to the FIDIC conditions of contract, they have a payment guarantee clause. Just like we procuring entity requiring them to submit performance security, there is payment guarantee clause that if I have my certificate and it's not paid within a certain time, then you can enforce that through a bank. Because it's a problem that they find is seriously affecting their performance. Finally, contract management is a very important stage of procurement cycle, which enables PE get what it intended to buy. We therefore need to practice sound contract management practices, and let us, through this presentation, stimulate discussions and share our experiences for all East African Procurement Forum partner countries on this important subject. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mlinga, and more so for keeping within the time. Now, our last presenter will be Mr. Benson Turami, who is currently the Executive Director of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets, Uganda. He has 15 years experience in the field of public procurement. He previously worked as the Director, Procurement Audit and Manager, Procurement Audit. He holds a Master's in Economic Policy and Management and also a BSc Economics from Makerere University. He is a member of the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supplies. I also wish to indicate that you have 20 minutes, and that will have pushed our program 10 minutes behind. So you'll do your best to live within that time allotted. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my colleagues, the ladies. The two previous presentations formed a preamble to my presentation. Engineer Manga's presentation on procurement and contract implementation, then Dr. Malinga's presentation on contract management gives me where to start from in sharing with you issues of open governance, because this eventually will lead to what you call sustainable economic development. So you will appreciate this presentation. It is interesting, and please don't sleep over me. It's a new phenomenon in public procurement. So open contracting, open governance in public procurement is a subject, and we are going to use Uganda's experience. Generally, my presentation will cover public procurement in Uganda as a background, then understanding and rationale of open governance in procurement, the Uganda's experience, and the benefits of open governance, and also give you a slide on the research project that we have done to address open governance. Those who are not familiar with public procurement in Uganda, is regulated under the PPDA Act of 2003, which was amended in 2012 and effectively implemented in 2014. It is even currently under another amendment. But also, to tell you that Uganda runs a decentralized public procurement system, with all public procurement being carried out at the procuring and disposing entity, whether it is central government, statutory body, our missions abroad, our local governments, they handle procurements themselves. But at the apex of this, we have the regulator, which is PPDA, where I work. Now, open governance, this is a doctrine where citizens have the right to access all information for effective public oversight. That is the simple definition. It is a doctrine where citizens have the right to access all information for effective public oversight. So in short, in this context of public procurement, it is total transparency of government officials on the procurement process. You get naked as a government official, and you have to reveal all the information to the citizens so that they can provide oversight. Why do we need to do this? Governments should disclose public information on the key terms of major contracts to civil society organizations, media, and the wider public. And this is happening in Uganda. If you are an accounting officer and you have a contract, it can be accessed by anybody, even an LC, a local council chairman of that village where the contract is implemented. Two, the reports of the oversight institutions like the PPDA, the Ombudsman, the Auditor General, should also be made widely available to enhance public scrutiny. So our audit reports can be also accessed by media or citizens. To complement these traditional accountability mechanisms, government should consider involving civil society organizations and wider public in monitoring high-value and complex procurements that entail significant risks of mismanagement and corruption. This is a quotation that we picked from OECD report of 2009. So open contracting, open governance through open contracting. Open contracting is about publishing and using open, accessible, and timely information on government contracting to engage citizens and businesses in identifying and fixing problems. Open contracting delivers better deals for governments, provides a level playing field for the private sector, and high quality goods and services for citizens. You have seen Dr. Mlinga quoting PPR compliance audits. Yes, we also do compliance audits. But I want to tell you, we can't cover the whole country. We do scoping. We can't be everywhere. So if you are to be effective as a government organ, then you have to avail information and involve citizens in complementing government effort. And that is what we are talking about, open contracting. What steps did Uganda do to address open contracting? Uganda adopted a multi-stakeholder approach in its drive towards open contracting. And it started 7 years ago, when a group of 25 organizations, which are civil society organizations, signed a memorandum of understanding to form the Uganda Contract Monitoring Coalition. And the coalition included a government represented by the regulator, by the PPDA, and other members of the private sector and CSOs. Under the amendment of the procurement law, which became operational in Uganda, it is a mandatory requirement that all government entities publish procurement plans, annual procurement plans. It is also mandatory that they publish procurement notices. These are bidding opportunities. Publish the record of bid opening. Publish best evaluated bidder notices. Publish contract award notices. Therefore, due to this requirement, the PPDA introduced government procurement portal in the year 2015-2016. Government procurement, it's an it's a web-based system accessible over the internet. Users in the procurement units are granted access using a valid username and passwords. They capture, the procurement units capture and modify the PE's respective data. The public does not require a password to access this system. Public is limited on reviewing the data. So if you are a CSO, you can go to our GPP, Government Procurement Portal, and you access all contracts that the government has signed with the bidders, with the providers. And if you are interested in specific contracts, then you can provide oversight over that contract. The main objectives of the government procurement portal were to monitor and report on the performance of the public procurement and disposal system in Uganda, organize and maintain a system for the publication of data on public procurement and disposal opportunities, awards, and any other information of public interest as may be determined by the PPDA. Here we also list all suspended providers on the portal. Then what steps do we take for open contracting data standards? The government of Uganda, through the PPDA, has partnered with AFIC. This is African Freedom of Information Center. They are here actually. They will make a presentation tomorrow. And open contracting partnerships. This is an international firm or company based in America to ensure that the government procurement portal is compliant with open contracting data standards. So our GPP data is compliant with open contracting data standards. This GPP has been upgraded to make it more OCDS compliant. And we are working with this open contracting partnership to ensure that the OCDS is incorporated in the upcoming electronic government procurement portal. We want to go automation next year, and therefore even the electronic government procurement system is going to comply with OCDS. And this company, or this NGO, this civil society has trained our technical teams on OCDS. The benefits that we get from open contracting include the public scrutiny of government contracts. It includes the public reporting on shoddy work, and this has gone up. And also, it supports the activism of civil society organizations, who are our eyes, our government eyes, our regulatory eyes and ears. But in support of this open contracting and being very transparent, we have also conducted, there is a research project that we are conducting that is ongoing to address the challenges of information. And we have entered an MOU with a Chicago University, whom we are working with our research team at the PPDA. The project involves testing 2 interventions that I believe have the potential to increase transparency and competition in public procurement. The first intervention targets providers by providing timely and accurate information about available tender opportunities. This is done through newspapers, plans, websites, and SMS. So, when a government publishes a tender opportunity, this partnership with the Chicago University, they have listed all providers, okay, maybe like 90% of the providers in the country, and then they send them SMSs and communicate the opportunities. Because at times, some of these potential contractors may miss out. The second intervention is providing PDEs with access to the 2 main sources of potential providers. They also have listed the government procuring entities. So they also, when there is an opportunity, they also send the potential providers that are registered with government entities that are also registered on our national register. PPD, we keep a national register, so they have captured all these with their addresses, and then they provide these providers to government entities. The next steps in this open governance is to roll out electronic government procurement that is OCDC compliant. We train different stakeholders on the available procurement monitoring tools and strengthen the collaboration with CSOs on contract monitoring, but also enforce publication of procurement information on the GPP. So we have already the CSOs we are working with. We have signed a framework with them, put clear guidelines, and we are training them on key areas to focus when they are doing contract monitoring. Mr. Chairman, members, that ends my presentation. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you very much for that presentation, which is just been restricted to the time that was allotted. Thanks once again. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this takes us right into the plenary session. Please feel free to ask any questions pertaining to the three presentations by Engineer Stephen Manda, Dr. Ramadan Mlinga, and just now from our friend from PPDA Uganda. So who would like to start asking any question on the three presentations? Yes, Uganda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador, and good afternoon. I have not been able to shake your hands. Hope to do it during the cocktail. I'm from Rwanda.
That is Augustus.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I have, I think, two questions for Dr. Mulinga. One question for Benson. Dr. Mulinga informed us that compliance management in Tanzania has improved and it has reached a level of 70%. This is a very good level of performance. So my question is, how does this compare with the Auditor General's findings as far as contract management in public procurement is concerned? The second question is about delayed payment to suppliers. How big is the problem in the ESC countries? And does any country allow interests or penalties to be paid by government institutions when they dare to pay suppliers? Then the question to Benson. I think he did inform us that open governance principles and its daughter open contracting data standards are new things. But it seems in Uganda they have embraced these principles and concepts and have moved some good steps. So in these principles and concepts, does nothing remain confidential? And if anything remains confidential, at least at one stage, at some stage. So what remains confidential? Because we know in public procurement, certain sometimes are taken as confidential. Thank you very much.
Sir Augustus, and thank you for correcting me. When I saw an arm raised, I thought it was from Uganda. And then when I heard the sound, I said the voice must be from Rwanda. So thank you for your comments. Any other question? Yes, please. Bring the mic to the gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name, sorry about that. I was saying my name, Mr. Chairman, is Philip Yeko from Kenya. Specifically, KenGen, that is Kenya Risk Generating Company, the equivalent of TANESCO. Mr. Chairman, I have questions to Engineer Manda and Dr. Ramatan Mlinga. Let me start first to compliment and commend Engineer Manda on the Julius Nyerere 2,115 megawatts project that they're implementing. It's a big project, massive. I want to specifically on the aspect of consultancy, that you were able to decide on this project Yeah, sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. I was saying I wanted to congratulate on the aspect of consultancy. We did a number of projects, especially in Kenya, but largely we've drawn consultants from our country. So I want to congratulate you on that. But coming now to my questions, probably you could expound to us in terms of the generation mix in Tanzania. Apart from do you also have thermal, wind, solar, geothermal, etc. in terms of the overall generation mix? And what's the capacity of each of the mode of generation? Question number 2, you talked of having this concept for the 2,115 megawatts, having started in 2050, a concept. You talked also of 1971, it was expected to be implemented until 2018. It would be interesting to know whether there was a feasibility study which was undertaken in 1950, 1971, or until recently when this project was implemented. And the last one is on the aspect of PAPs, that is project affected persons. Where are we now? Have you completed issues concerning all project affected persons? And in addition, the cost of US dollars, you talked of the US dollars 2.9 billion. Is that part of the cost of also for the PABs? You could also clarify on that. Yeah, that's to both Dr. Engineer Manda. I'll move now to Ramatan Mlinga. Based on your experience on project management, could you probably, from your experience, share with us what were the major issues that caused in terms of contract variations across the 5 financial years from 2014, 2015 to 2018, 2019, both for contract variations and also for claims? What were the major issues that impacted into variations and claims for the projects that were implemented? Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. Anybody else with another question? Yes, nearby.
Hello.
I'll come to you.
My name is Teresia. I'm working with the Ras Mtwara. My comment is directed to the TANESCO people. Engineer Manda, I noticed that in your presentation, you are from the user department. Can you please share with us how the PMU of TANESCO was participated in this issue up to this level of today where you are implementing this project? Thank you.
You, there was a hand, yes.
Mic here.
Send the mic there.
Thank you, Chair, and for my colleagues behind me for advocating so hard that we may be seen. I want to start by recognizing all the progress and compliment all the hard work that has been done so far, that has been presented by all the presenters. And my question goes to Uganda, and my name is Hope Muli from Kenya. HIVOS is the organization I work for. I want Uganda. It is interesting you have moved so fast and you've been able to start the journey towards the, implementing the open contracting data standard. As you take on your journey and how far you've come, taking stock, how much in terms of savings would you say you have started realizing so far since you started implementing the standard? We ask this because for us, the statistics are as equally important as the journey, and a lot of these statistics are not captured most of the time. The second question, other than the savings, is there an interface between the rollout at the national level in terms of the PPRA and the subnational or district level procurement entities? And how does the interface work? Do they have a system that they upload on? Is it one centralized system? Do they have other systems? And if there are other systems, how is the interface done so that there's no duplication and we keep to accuracy and you're able to compare and interpolate part of the data? Lastly, the third question is around the disclosure, the proactive disclosure that you have already started, and it seems you're having good progress on that area. You did highlight some of the notices you put out. Are you considering in any way to start attaching the documents so that the data that you put out is also supported by documents, for example, evaluation reports, the values themselves, and at the different stages, including the contracts, of course, with keeping in mind issues around privacy. Thank you.
Madam, at the back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. My name is Mary. I'm from the PPDA Malawi. My question is also directed to the Director General of PPDA Uganda. It's also on the open contracting. I just wanted to learn from you, sir, on what the response of the CSOs has been like, and also the relationship that is there between the CSOs themselves and the PDEs, the procuring and disposal entities in Uganda. What has the response been like? What is the relationship between these two like? And what are the challenges, if any, so that we can learn from your experience? Thank you.
Madam, next, close to the last speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Biaranga is my name, from PPDA Uganda. And I would like to compliment all the people who have presented. But specifically, I want to address myself to Engineer Stephen Manda. You talked about the local content issue and your quotation was on the consultants. That is, of course, a credit. But I just wanted you to comment on the local content in relation to procurement of the inputs, the materials as the construction is going on. And I pick this as an experience from Uganda where we had a complaint, where we have an EPC on Karuma Dam doing a similar job. And the local people were saying the procurement rules are not clear on how they can benefit. Maybe you'd want to give a comment on that. Thank you.
Let us give an opportunity to the presenters, and then we'll continue with more questions. Let us start with the presenters. Who will start? Engineer Amanda?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for those who asked questions regarding the presentation that I made. And I'll go straight to gentleman from Kenyan. But thank you for appreciating the project that we're implementing. But with regards to your questions regarding the generation mix, in Tanzania, the installed capacity as of now is 1.6 gigawatt, and this composed of generation mix, thermal, hydro. We haven't exploited yet renewable resources, specifically from solar and wind. The contribution in this generation mix is currently, before we add Julius Nyerere, the contribution from hydro is 573.7 megawatts. From thermal gas, we have the potential of natural gas in Tanzania. From thermal gas, the contribution is 892.72 megawatts. Thermal fossil, that's liquid fuel, is 88.7 megawatts. Biomass, 10.5. And we have a few off-grid generation facilities from liquid fuel, contributing about 32.3 megawatts. So if you add that one, you get to 1.6 gigawatt. That is the generation mix. But we have currently advertised tenders on renewable resources, specifically large wind and solar. And the potential of solar is 150 megawatts. And for wind, we're starting with 200 megawatts, but we want to go until 600 megawatts. And also we have the potential of other thermal, that is coal. We have the potential of almost 1,000 megawatts, but we are starting with 600 megawatts. So you can see we are using the generation mix. And currently we're developing this large, the mega hydropower project of 2.115 gigawatt. But on the gas, we are also developing other, we're planning to develop other gas power plants in Mtwara, that's 300 megawatts. Another one in Somanga, 300 megawatts. So you have 600. And Kinyerezi, we recently completed a combined cycle power plant. That's the first one in East Africa of 240 megawatt combined cycle gas power plant. We are also planning to develop within 3 years' time another 600 megawatt combined cycle power plant in Kinyerezi. So you can see we are going towards the right direction, and we are going through this generation mix. But we have the abundant supply or abundant potential of hydro. And after Stigler's, we are planning to develop Rumakali hydropower project, that's 222 megawatts, and Ruhuji, 358 megawatts. You can see the potential of hydro, as I said in my presentation, that we have abundant resources of hydro. What is required is how we can exploit these resources for the betterment of life of our population. With regards to feasibility study, whether we carry the feasibility study, as I said in my presentation, this feasibility study for the Rufiji River Basin started way back in 1950. This study was carried by FAO, whereby they came up with the results that in Rufiji River Basin, the dam can be built, which can serve for irrigation, fishing, and power generation. And for the irrigation purpose, it can serve 480 acres, that is 200 hectares, 200,000 hectares. You can see this started way back. So the study started in 1950, but for power generation, it started in 1970, whereby a Norwegian consultants firm, that is No Plan International, they did a study, and they established that there is a potential of generating 2,000 megawatt along at Rufiji River. And in 1980, a company from Brazil, this company is called Odebrecht from Brazil, they did also the feasibility study, they came up with the same results. And before we start implementing the project in 2017, we had to review and see if the parameters that were observed way back from 1950 to date are the same parameters. Fortunately, we got the same parameters with additions. That's why we are really certain that we're going to generate 2.115 gigawatt from Rufiji River, that's from Rufiji Hydropower project. With regards to PAPs, the project affected persons, the value of the contract that I mentioned, $2.9 billion, is only for development of the power project, excluding the PAPs. The PAPs that we identified are only few hotels that were in the Selu Game Reserve. And the total amount was almost 4.5 billion Tanzanian shillings. So if you want to have, at the end of the day, the total project, you add that 6.5 trillion TZS plus 4.5 billion TZS, then you get the total project cost, if there won't be any addition. With regards to another question from Tanzania, this is from Twara, the lady, the user department. Sure, we are from the user department. In the procurement process for this project, it involved not only TANESCO, it involved different institutions of the government of Tanzania, from the Attorney General Chambers, from the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, TANESCO, Ministry of Lands. So everybody was involved so that we don't miss anything when we go into the implementation. So, from these institutions, we also involve the procurement experts from PMUs. So it's not only focusing on one profession. We use all the professions, because when you want to develop this project, it is a cross-cutting issue. It goes from the technical, legal, contract management, and so forth. So that's why we decided to use all professions. From Uganda, thank you, gentlemen, for the local content. With regards to local content, it's not only on the consultancy services. What we agreed and what was stipulated in the contract is that all works related to utilization of unskilled labor, it was stated clearly in the contract, should be from Tanzania. And also, skilled labor that doesn't need a specialty should also be from the United Republic of Tanzania. And contractors for supply of consumables, being supply of food materials, supply of cement, supply of sand, supply of aggregates, supply of steel. And speak of whatever you can say. If it's available within the United Republic of Tanzania, it should be supplied by the Tanzanian companies. This is what was stipulated in the contract. So I think it's a lesson to learn for other countries, so that you also build the capacity of the people, but also use this opportunity for your people to benefit. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Amanda. Now give the floor to Dr. Engineer Mlinga.
Thank you, Chair. There was a question from Augustus. How does the compliance compare with the Controller and Auditor General's audits? It's a bit difficult to compare. Fortunately, PPRA has been using a system of indicators where you give a score. But the CAG report just mentions you didn't comply with this, we didn't comply with this. So it's very difficult really using the CAG report to say whether there has been improvements or not. The beauty of the PPRA system is that of course they show shortcomings, but at the end of the day, even with the shortcomings, they'll score how much a PE has scored. So it's a bit difficult to compare. The issue of delayed payments, yes, in the contract, actually if you read my paper later on, in the contracts it provides for payment of interest on delayed payments. And maybe I should mention, because most of the PE's staff were here, they disable that clause. Unfortunately, it's a clause that should not be disabled, because when you read in the general conditions of contract, it doesn't provide reference to the special conditions of contract. So they go in the special conditions of contract, they say not applicable. But the general conditions of contract, they doesn't provide for disablement in the special conditions of contract. There's no cross-referencing for that one. So it means it's a clause that should not be changed. If you have some problems of delaying payments, then you have to take the consequences of later paying interest on the delayed payments. A gentleman from Kenyan, he asked the issue of what are the causes of variations claims. This one, I would say, maybe it's a problem of what I'll call over-promising and underestimating at the same time. You sit with your leader, you say this can be accomplished in 6 months. This can be accomplished at this budget, which is underestimated. The end result, and with inadequate preparation of the tender documentation, the drawings, the specifications, is that you are now in the middle of the project, you find there are some omissions which have got to be taken on board. Automatically, it will lead to variations. It will lead to extension of time. This is why in the way forward that I gave, I put a lot of emphasis on initial preparations, because good contract management, problems of claims, problems of variations, extension of time, can be overcome if we have made proper initial preparations in terms of estimating, in terms of picking the right contractor with the right price, providing adequate and realistic time for completion of the project, and so on. And actually for me, I sometimes tell people, what we say is variation is not actually variation. It's actually the actual cost of doing the project. And what we say is an extension of time is not really an extension of time. It's the realistic time for carrying out that particular construction. If you underestimate those parameters or you overestimate, you find that eventually you come to the equilibrium where things have to happen the way they are supposed to happen, which is from the presentation that was made by my colleague from Uganda, and I understand that National Construction Council people are here, we had this what we call Construction Sector Transparency Initiative. And this Construction Sector Transparency Initiative is an international multi-stakeholder initiative involving public and private sector, as well as civil societies, designed to increase transparency and accountability, but the focus was only in the construction sector. And actually, they have what we call infrastructure data standard. And last year, I think, I made a presentation in the International Public Procurement Conference on, I was trying to benchmark between the infrastructure data standard and disclosure of information under the Public Procurement Act. And with the permission of the organizers, I can make that presentation available in the information pack to be given to the participants. But what I want to say here is I spoke about PPRA's a contract completion disclosure form. Basically, the design of this particular form, first of all, they have the contract award disclosure information, and then they have the contract completion disclosure form. The design of those forms was intended basically to be able to capture relevant information about the tender process and about the contract implementation, which can be shared to the public. Now, which platform is used, that could be an issue of discussion, but already there are tools that are supported by the Public Procurement Act and that PPRA has developed that will enable capturing information, all the information about the tender process until the contract award, but also all the information about the contract implementation, which I think is a starting point towards open contracting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mlinga. Our last presenter, Mr. Benson, the name is a bit complicated.
Turamie, you pronounced it well, by the way.
Turamie. So, if I pronounce it well, I can repeat. Benson Turamie.
Very good.
Okay, you have the floor.
Some Ugandans don't know how to pronounce it. They call it Toriamie, which is wrong, but thank you for pronouncing it well. I want to thank Dr. Mlinga for supplementing on open contracting, but specifically in the construction sector. The questions before me clearly show that you understood this subject. Before I came, I was worried because it is a very complicated concept and it is very new in the procurement language. But from the questions that came, it was clear. So we'll keep on talking about it till actually it impacts on our contract monitoring effort. Augustus from Rwanda, on what information remains confidential. First of all, I want also to mention that in Uganda we have an act which is Access to Information Act 2015. So any citizen can ask a public official any information. But for this particular case in public procurement, we very mindful about documents or information that may compromise the competitive nature of bidders. Because bidders have information which is for them, which they don't want to be revealed to other competitors, like their bids. So that information can't be accessed by the public. Because that if you access someone's bid, then you may use it in subsequent procurements. But a contract can be accessed. And essentially, really, we are interested in having a contract accessed by the public. If a citizen comes to the accounting office and say, I need a contract of this, you avail it. Because we are mainly interested in ensuring that the contract terms and conditions are being implemented for the benefit of the citizens. The other concern by the Kenyan lady, you have a number of concerns. Some of them are complicated because I don't have data, like how much has been saved. I don't have data, but tomorrow I believe we'll get testimonies from some of the CSOs from Uganda that are going to make presentations and who have actually used the open contracting data, our GPP data. But I could quickly say that at times they abandoned works. You go to a project, person was given money, advanced, he abandons the site. When these CSOs go there, establish it, then you see someone rushing back to resume works. There are issues of shoddy work. Someone is doing shoddy because supervision and monitoring is weak. But when he knows that actually people know even what he's supposed to do, this building is supposed to have so many windows, he puts them there. We have seen cases where people even contractors want to compromise on the sizes of the buildings. You see a CSO coming with a tape measure, simple things. He measures the building size, he said, but your foundation does not cover the whole building. Then such things are corrected. Some of these we have not gone to get the monetary value, but I think the benefits are visible. In terms of disclosure, still, the data that is on the government procurement portal does not have attachments. You wouldn't download and get a contract, but you would know that this contract is being implemented in this area. It has basic data. The value is this, the contract is this, the contract period is this. You wouldn't even get the details of the scope. So when you are interested, a civil society is interested. But also these civil society organizations work in specific areas. We haven't covered the whole country. There are districts where they work. There are ministries where they work. So they focus those contracts and get the contracts themselves and understand, study terms and conditions of these contracts for purposes of effective monitoring. The interface between the center and the local government. In Uganda, the law is the same for the center and the local government. So if the interest in the local government, you'll still get similar conditions or terms of the contract in that PE. Malawi, still the relationship between CSOs and the PDEs, of course, it was tough. The accounting officers are so big, so powerful, that at times, if you ask them to provide a contract document, it becomes that you are overstepping on their authority. But with continuous sensitization and our regulatory arm extending to them, they have accepted to provide whatever information the CSOs request for. On the challenges, there are many challenges. If you want to learn more, but One, I could mention just about three. The challenges of open contracting. One is data input, the incompletion of data input. Because this data on the government procurement portal is self-inputted by the procuring entities. So if they don't put complete data, then it becomes difficult to know much about that contract. We, at the regulatory authority, we emphasize compliance, and I have a compliance unit which does regular checks on PEs inputting data. The other challenge is because this GPP is a web-based, our issues of internet connectivity in our developing world. You find that the system is down, and when a PE is going to input data today and they find the system down, then maybe that is put aside, then it becomes an issue of, again, data completeness. The other issue, especially on CSOs, is capacity, which we are working on. Capacity in terms of technical skills. What are you looking, if you get a contract, you have gone to Ministry of Education, they're implementing a complex procurement. What are you monitoring? What should you look for? Capacity, but we are working with them in terms of capacity building, but also resources. Because these CSOs are using, they may not have enough financial resources to cover most of the government contracts. So thank you for listening. Chairman, thank you for giving this opportunity. And I'm blessed to be chaired by you, highly experienced.
We still have more time because this session is supposed to close at 17:30. That means we still have another 40 minutes. So we can allow more questions. Yes, please. Mike, bring a mic here. Okay, go ahead. She has chosen you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my comment we're going to send to presentation made by Engineer Stephen Manda. Yeah, my name is Vincent Stephen from Tanzania. Particularly now I'm working with TPA. Yeah, first of all, allow me, Chair, to congratulate him for good presentation made by him. Of course, the project is very interesting to us because its trigger may be public interest. Yeah, so my comment will pose to, maybe I had two comments. One, your presentation did not show the project payback, at least in brief. And the other, maybe it will be take out what is identified a procurement gap between other procurement of works with that which should be taken by procurement practitioner to improve in future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 questions. The first one is going to Mr. Manda, Engineer Manda. He indicated that there are 2 types of HEP, hydroelectrical projects. He said there is exploitable HEP and technical HEP. I would like maybe to know more about that. What is the difference? Another question goes to Dr. Mlinga on the contract management. We know that most of these contracts differ from types to types. Like a contract can be influenced mainly by the employer, another one by the contractor or designer, and another maybe by the financier. And there are other various categories of classifying contracts, like FIDIC and non-FIDIC, Chinese, we heard in this morning. So one would wish to know which one is easy to manage. Those which are designed maybe by the contractor or the employer himself, or the FIDIC or non-FIDIC. And also, I would like to know if is it possible to add more value? I mean, to improve contract management if a contract is translated in a local language, like Swahili, or even a vernacular one, if a project is of a public interest. And finally, just wanted to contribute that in Tanzania also we have the so-called Tanzania Access to Information Act of 2016, which provide for any citizen to access any information based on any activity which have utilized any public money. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh. The gentleman in the middle, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 small questions. Moses from Uganda. And these are for purposes of local content. There are questions going to PPDA Uganda. So, question number 1, the presentation talked about open contracting, rotating around transparency or information sharing. I would want to know how you would approach risks associated with information sharing, particularly in the case where too much information shared along the procurement process would lead to delays in the procurement process in itself. The case of UNRWA, my regulator, you understand this. How would you cushion yourself against such? Because not all people who access the information which you are giving them in good faith would ordinarily use it in good faith. And the case of UNRWA, I would possibly get an experience from elsewhere. Number 2, still related to sharing information, a speaker said how much can be kept. Since you say this is a new trend, and you're promoting that information must be shared, how would you go about information sharing in relation to classified procurement without avoiding or without giving chance for abuse for those involved in those processes? And lastly, part of the information sharing, you talked about procurement plans being displayed on notices, which we do. And you understand that procurement plans has budget. And the intention or the objective of open bidding is to get value for money in terms of getting the best out of it. How do you cushion yourself against collusion where 3 main bidders in that project all know that you have already publicized in the notices? Thank you.
you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I have minor questions, 2 questions. One goes to my colleague from TANESCO. I want to, if it is possible, could you tell us the number of days from the first stage of procurement for the Stigler Gorge? I mean, from the day the procurement management unit received the procedural form number 2 up to signing of the contract, in the sense of trying to share knowledge and also to get mentoring from you, as highlighted by the Deputy Minister of Finance and Planning. The aim of procurement is value for money. And one of the elements of value for money is time. This is according to Section 4A of the Public Procurement Act number 7, 2011, which has been amended in 2016 through the 5. The second question goes to the Chief Executive Officer of PDA. Also, it is a minor question. This is regarding disposal of the public asset. In our United Republic of Tanzania, the disposal of public asset is authorized by the Paymaster General or the higher competent authority. This is according to Regulation 325 or Public Procurement Regulations 2013, GN 446, which has been amended in 2016 through GN 333. So, pursuant to the PPDA in Uganda, who is authorizing authority for disposal of a public asset?
Thank you. The gentleman, oh, there are 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeremiah Malongo, and I'm with UNDP. I have 2 questions. One is directed to Dr. Mringa, and specifically relating to contract management. And I'm going to zero in on the issue of challenges affecting contract management, and specifically in the area of delayed payment. One of the way forward and recommendations that you made about delayed payment, and you are addressing to one of our colleagues who was sitting there, like there's a clause that has been removed that is stated about imposing an interest penalty when there's a payment that has been delayed. We all know most of public procurement are government and institutions of public nature, which are inherently bureaucratic in nature. If we are going to introduce that penalty and the interest rate to this government institution or public institution, what is our expectation? My answer is, I think the contract price or cost are going to increase significantly, and we may not realize the value we are looking for. I don't think that's the right way to go. That's my suggestion. My second question is to the engineer, I just forgot his name, about the TANESCO, Engineer Manda here. If you can let us know of all the power mix that you generate, which one is the cheapest from the generator point of view and the distribution that is a regular consumer gets, and if there are any possible plans to scale up the one mix that is the cheapest of all, and why can't we do that and probably do a little bit reading of the others. Thank you.
There was a second hand nearby.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Opoku. I'm from Accra, Ghana, and I work with the Open Contracting Partnership. I lead our global training, and I'm happy to hear, as mentioned, what we do is we help countries who are trying to implement open contracting to lead to better quality goods and services for the public to achieve that. So we have worked with Uganda. We are going to be working with Kenya to do this. I just want to comment because I have heard questions around what are the risks of disclosing data in the procurement system. And given our work across the world, we actually have done a report that is specifically answering this question. So if you really want to know more, come pick up a free copy. We also have it available online. When you are releasing data in the Open Contracting Data Standard, we do not release data around personally identifiable information, around commercially sensitive information, around national security information. But the thing that we're saying is that we have done the analysis, and countries like Slovakia, Ukraine, Georgia, and other places have seen that these concerns that people raise actually do not necessarily exist. So I think for every country, the most important thing is to say, what do we identify as being personally identifiable information, as being commercially sensitive information, and don't release that, but give a reason. Most of the time, no reason is given, and the data is generally just not put out. So again, I am available here for the rest of the session if you want to talk to me about these questions, or if you want to partner with the Open Contracting Partnership to work on open contracting, available to help that. Thank you so much.
Uganda. Any other questions? There's a few more. Yes.
It is a compliment to my own Executive Director, PPDA, and in relation to open contracting. Yes, he didn't give us data about how much we have saved, but the consequence of open contracting has benefited the country and has also benefited specific organizations. For instance, Uganda, as you are aware, its GDP has jumped from 25.6 billion to 35 billion. And the reason is most of the major projects, government-owned projects, have been concluded because of the open contracting process. The roads, the dams, major buildings have been completed, and then they contribute to the GDP figure. In my own organization, 6 years ago, our total balance sheet was 6 trillion Uganda ceiling. It has jumped to 11 trillion. And this is because of the cooperation we have, because of some of the real estate projects that have been completed in the past 5 years. And this is because of the support we've gotten from PPDA. And Benson, I would like to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, yes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My first question has been repeated by many participants. My name is Sano from Rwanda, TI Rwanda, Transparency International Rwanda. But I want to emphasize it again. It's about the contract management, especially the delayed payment, because it's connected to other issues like delayed project implementation, abandoned project, and even sometimes delayed payment to workers, especially on the side of contractors. So Mulinga has mentioned that there are clauses in the contract that stipulates the interests that should be paid when there is a delayed payment, but are there other provisions from the laws that protects the contractors when the procuring entity keeps ignoring that clause? Another question goes to Mr. Benson, Executive Director, PPDA. It's about how they involve the citizens in terms of monitoring the public procurement. To what level or to what extent? And do they have that capacity to monitor public procurement, or do they do it through civil society to build their capacity? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The lady at the back.
My name is Mercy. I'm from Tanzania. My question goes to Engineer Manda. We have learned that Engineer Manda is the tender coordinator from TANESCO, and the consultant for this project is also from TANESCO. So my question is, doesn't he face any challenges implementing or coordinating the project, whereas the consultant is TANESCO and is also from TANESCO?
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Anybody else? Yes. You have the mic.
Thank you very much. Finally, you get to see me. I have a few questions, and thank you to the chairman and to the three presenters. That was wonderful. To the first presenter from TANESCO, I looked at the charts of the players within that contract, and I realized the contractor is Sinohydro. I think Sinohydro is a Chinese state-owned contractor, and I don't know how local that project is, particularly with respect to the $2.9 billion on that project. I don't know what percentage goes to the consultant and what percentage will go to the contractor. When it comes to the awareness creation of the project, I don't know how Tanzania particularly looks at this, but where I come from, sorry, my name is Phyllis Chepkemboi. I'm from Kenya, and for purposes of this meeting, I'm a board member at the Public Procurement Review Board. When it comes to awareness creation of a project coming, I know in different countries, people would try and clamor and ensure they buy either land or property where a project is coming or is intended to come. And sometimes this affects the budget that has been put for the resettlement action plan. Now, in this particular project, I realize only a few hotels are going to be affected on a budget of 4.5 billion shillings. I don't know whether that has already been paid to these hotels, or there are other actors who will come and go and purchase property in the hope of trying to get more money, thereby either bloating the budget for this project. I don't know whether those were questions or comments. You'll try to see what to pick out of that. And on contract management, presented by Dr. Mlinga, I was expecting to see, I know there are challenges on the project management unit with respect to the procurement entities, especially the nexus between the legal people, procurement people, and the technical people, especially within that contract management. Do the procurement people end their business as soon as the contract is awarded, and the legal people as soon as the contract is signed? And what happens throughout that contract period? This is an area that brings a lot of issues, especially for the procurement entities. Now, on open governance, congratulations to Uganda. I think Kenya, we are either at par with you or ahead. And I had somebody from Tanzania clarifying that they also have access to information. In Kenya, we also have
an Access to Information Act, which anybody in Kenya has the ability to know what happens in all the public entities. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. Anybody else? Or we allow the presenters to give comments or answers to the questions? Okay. Let me turn back to Engineer Amanda.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity once again to respond to some of the comments, questions that were raised. Vincent from Tanzania, project payback brief. Well, this was precisely done. Maybe I cannot give you the exact answer now, but it will be provided on request. But with regards to procurement shortfalls, as I said, during the procurement process, we involved all stakeholders to make sure that we don't skip key components of the project. And up to this point in time, we haven't encountered problems with regards to what was not seen during the preparations of the procurement document and also the contract document. Regarding two types of hydropower, basically it's not two types, it's more than two types. It's not types, but rather the operational and the implementation aspect. You have the theoretical, and then you have the technical, and then you have the exploitable. When it comes to the theoretical, it's just a theoretical aspect. Then you see that within this area, say the river, I can generate, say, 3,000 megawatts. And then when you do the analysis, the studies, the feasibility studies, and other consideration, then you involve the technical aspect. So technical. The procurement process, that is initiating of form number 2, and until signing of the contract. As I said, we started this in December 2017, when we advertised the tender, and the opening was set on 2nd of February 2018. This is an international tender. We wanted to exploit all the avenues and opportunity to get the potential bidders in this area, because it's a mega project. Shortening a time might not give you what you wanted, so we are too strategic to make sure that we give enough time to bidders to prepare their offers so that they come with an exhaustive offers. That's why it took time from December. The opening was 2nd of February 2018. And also due to the magnitude of this of the procurement of this hydropower project, it took us 10 months until contract signing. Because after opening, you need to do the evaluation, which need also to be given more time to make sure that you critically analyze all the submission by potential bidders. So the evaluation process, negotiation process, until contract signing, it took us 10 months. The opening was 2nd of February 2018, and contract signing was 12th December 2018. So it is 10 months period. Negotiation itself took 3 months. It was not an easy task to negotiate. Just to point out, the first ranked bidder was a company from Turkey. But in the due course of negotiations, we could reach a compromise. And then we say, okay, let us now go to the second ranked. So it was not an easy task. So you really need to be strategical to make sure that you achieve what you wanted to achieve. So that was the time frame. Regarding power mix, yes, we have a power mix. And the question was about least cost. When we talk of the least cost generation facilities, hydro is the least cost. The next is nuclear, followed by coal, gas, other renewable resources like wind, solar. Then you go to the fossil fuel, that is liquid fuel. So hydro is the least cost power generation source all over the world. And that's why as Africa and East Africa, we really need to make sure that we exploit this potential, to make sure that we have least cost generation that will be reflected to the tariff structure. Then we have the affordable power to our citizens. Regarding the question on how the project is organized. This project, the employer on behalf of the government of Tanzania is TANESCO, that is Tanzania Electric Supply Company. The consultant is TANROADS Engineering Consulting Unit from TANROADS and not from TANESCO. And the contractor is a joint venture of Arab contractors and Elsewedi Electric. So just to put it clear, we are the employer, not the consultant. The consultant is from TANROADS, but all these are the government, the companies from Tanzania and other government institutions. We need to work together to realize the objective of generating 2.115 gigawatt of electricity for Tanzanians. The other question relating to the one that I've just said, the contractor I said is Arab contractors, JV of Arab contractors and Elsewedi Electric from Egypt. We have the main subcontractor, Sino Hydro Corporation from China, the expert for the main dam. Because when we talk of hydropower project, almost 43 to 45% goes to the main dam structure. Therefore, this is being done by the main subcontractor, who is Sino Hydro. And the main dam itself, in terms of Tanzanian shillings, is 1.15 trillion. So you can see only the main dam. So that is the scope of the Sino Hydro. It's almost 43% of this project, and others is by the main contractor. Regarding awareness creation to the public, we're doing it right. TANESCO, we have 2 days in a week to use media, TBC, this Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation, and other medias. We have TANESCO na maendeleo, we are creating awareness to the public. And also through our regional centers in every region, we have a desk that also create awareness to the public regarding not only this mega project, Stigler's or Julius Nyerere hydropower project, but also the transmission projects. Now we have transmission project connecting Kenya and Tanzania. It's called KTPIP, Kenya-Tanzania Power Interconnection Project. It's a 400 kV transmission line. And we just completed the backbone transmission project, also at 400 kV voltage level. And we are in a move now, which will commence soon, for interconnecting with Zambia. We call it TAZA, from Beira to Tunduma, and then Zambia, and then Sumbawanga. You can see we are creating awareness to the public, not only for the power generation, we are doing also for transmission and for distribution. So with that, I can say we are good in doing that. Hope I have responded to all what you have asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I was joking with the chairman on this concept of open contracting and transparency. And one of our president, I think it was the fourth phase president, where he said, okay, we talk about transparency, but can you really get naked and walk out in the public in the spirit of transparency? So I think, going by what the other presenter was saying, there is some information which needs to be kept, others which can be made public. Now, on the issue of delayed payments and disabling the interest rate, payment of interest, I think we are not being fair. Service providers, they are not there to finance government programs. You go out in procurement because you have sufficient budget for which you can pay for. Now, if you delay someone's payment for 6 months, basically you are telling him, finance my project, and then, because they take overdrafts, they take loans from the bank in order to finance those projects. And I think we are talking about fairness. A contract should be fair to both parties. And I think the more we put liquidated damages, for example, because of delays, we want them to pay. What about us if we delay payments? And actually, I'm going to read Regulation 10.4, Sub-Regulation 10.4 of the Public Procurement Regulation. It says, a procuring entity shall ensure that payments are made properly and promptly in accordance with the terms of each procurement contract entered into, with a view to maintain the credibility and creditworthiness of a procuring entity. And a procuring entity shall ensure that commitments are recorded against allocated funds before any contract is signed. So we are expected, before signing a contract, to have funds not committed, to have funds committed. So I think this is something that I think we are killing, and it mainly affects the local players, because the source of funding for the local players, the banks, the interest rates which are being charged are very high. For foreign players, they have other sources, and for them, you cannot, actually most of the foreign contractors, you cannot tamper with that particular clause. They would not accept that, where you have delayed payments and you have disabled and I think the judges are here, if it goes to the courts, sometimes the courts can rule in favor of the weaker party. The person from Rwanda, I think, asked about, is there any other provisions? Actually, there is a provisions in the conditions of contract that you can charge interest rates, but any payment that is delayed beyond 84 days, that can be treated as a fundamental breach of contract, and it entitles a contractor or a supplier to termination of contract. But we understand some of them, they fail to exercise their right under that particular clause. But we have seen some cases where some contractors have terminated contracts because for payments that have been delayed beyond 84 days, particularly where they don't have any other source of financing. The end result is that you don't perform and you end up being terminated yourself. So they do that when they feel that they cannot perform because of financial difficulties. There was a question on the interface between legal procurement people and user department. Of course, it's the procurement management unit that is responsible in managing the procurement process up to the contract award. But if you read our law, it says that has to be done in liaison with the user department, because the user department, when it comes to the technical documents, drawings, specifications, bills of quantities, and other such kind of technical documents, the user department has got to play a very great role to make sure that they are properly prepared. But the contract management is under the ambit of the user department. But when now it comes that there are some variations that needs to be made and that have to be presented to the tender board, then they have to work together with the PMU, because PMU is the secretariat of the tender board. So basically, they have to work together as a team, really, because they depend on each other. And there's a lot of overlapping, there's a lot of interfacing that needs to be done for successful implementation of any procurement as well as contract management for projects. Thank you, Chair.
Very much. Now to the last presenter.
Thank you, Chair. There are a few questions, but I want to thank Dr. Moringa, Tubachi from Ghana, Jared from Uganda. I believe the question of Moses is answered by those supplements, but I could add something. Moses is from Uganda, and the chair, he didn't introduce himself properly, is from Uganda Airlines. We have an airline now in Uganda, which started like 6 months ago, so you can fly Uganda Airline. His question mainly was on the risks associated with information sharing. And he gave an example of UNRA, Uganda National Roads Authority. There was a big procurement where almost we got like 10 whistleblowers. Everybody was complaining about that procurement. But when you are raising information, you raise necessary information. What is the problem at times that happen is that before evaluators finish evaluation, then some of the evaluation committee members are already telling bidders or those who have participated about the results and why they have failed before even the formal results are displayed on the notice board. That's what is killing our procurement, the confidentiality. And this is usually from the evaluation teams. But for purposes of open contracting, there is information that you must release. And the gentleman from Ghana, I think he has ably explained what you should release. And also on classified information, still it was explained, if it is going to compromise national security, then you may not have to release that information. On procurement plans, display, you know, the trouble we have, and why we are emphasizing that the procurement plans should be displayed, is because at times information or the contents of the procurement plans are discriminatorily shared. Even if we say formally share it, you find it is already in public domain, maybe to favored contractors who need to know this information. So for us, we are saying, display it on the PPDA website, submit your procurement plan to the Minister of Finance and the PPDA, and also post it on the government procurement portal. Full disclosure, so that bidders can access those procurement plans and prepare accordingly. The collusion bid, even if you don't display, if there was to be collusion, when you advertise, they could collude. Because we have seen cases, especially in Uganda, where bidders know that this particular procurement of this complexity is for this particular, it's this bidder who can do it. And they know the capacities of themselves, especially if it is a domestic bidding procurement. So that is something that we need good investigators to stop these collusions. The Tanzania gentleman here on disposal, which is the competent authority for disposal. So in Uganda, as you clearly heard, the act is Public Procurement and Disposal Act. So the act has provisions for disposal, and it provides for annual boards of surveys. Every year, there must be a boards of survey to identify assets for every entity for disposal. And this is done together with Accountant General's Office, which is under Minister of Finance. So when those items are identified for disposal, then that entity is fully responsible to dispose those items identified. The method, there are several methods in the Act, and therefore the entity itself, through the contracts committees, decide the method of disposal. It could be a public bidding, it could be auction, it could be sale to public officers if they are small values that may help them continue functioning their mandate. There are a number. There are even methods of destruction or transfer to another entity. So generally, the responsible is an entity after boards of survey. However, there is also a rider that an accounting officer can establish a boards of survey at any time, in addition to that annual mandatory requirement. Thank you, Tabuk from Ghana, for the compliment. Thank you, Gerard, for the compliment. The last one on citizens' involvement, what level? This, as far as we are concerned, and the partnership the PPDA has is with civil society organizations. And most of these civil society organizations are ground-based. They are based, they're on the ground. They are almost all over the country. So they work with the citizens. But I would say our intervention in terms of capacity building, in terms of signing MOUs, in terms of availing information and accessing, giving them rights to access our information, it is with civil society organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My apologies, we have gone outside the program by some 8 minutes, but that was necessary because I thought it was important to allow the 3 speakers to exercise their right of reply following the numerous questions. But I think they did a good job and they deserve another pat on the back. So another applause. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of my chairing of this session today. I would now like to leave it to the moderator for announcements and other procedural issues. Karibu.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for a job well done and having being endured to stay whole day chairing these sessions. Can you give him an applause, a big applause of hands, for that? And all the presenters have already been given an applause, but we could still add another one for all the presenters today. And, okay, you can go back and take your seat. Yes, please. Yes, I can, because you have finished your part. Well, we are coming to the end. We are actually coming to the end of what was planned for today in terms of presentations and discussions. Interesting discussions, and hopefully there will be some realistic resolutions which will have to come out of these discussions and presentations. Of course, an issue of delayed payments has always been a problem, and when I met a number of contractors who had complained about delayed payments, and I asked them, why don't you charge interest? They say, we'll be blacklisted. They completely said to me, no, if you start charging interest, they will not invite me to submit another proposal, so why? Let me take it. But anyway, it's something which can still be discussed on other forums. Thank you. Well, we will now be prepared. We'll get prepared to go for our cocktail, which is a few steps away on the other block upstairs, and an open area, and a tent. But before we close, I will have a few announcements. The presentations which have been made by the different people actually will be uploaded on the website of PPRA Tanzania, and they can be accessed when you access the link. You will be told the link of which to access the presentations. It was supposed that every evening they will upload those presentations of that day. But a good thing is also that an arrangement is being made that every one of you will receive a flash disk at the end, on the last day, on the third day, we'll receive a flash disk with all presentations put in there. And we will also ask Dr. Mlinga to also share the presentation he had said about the comparison of the data standards and those which are released, the information released through the Public Procuring Act. Also that can be there for you to see the comparison. It could be helpful to you. Otherwise, we have an announcement about transport of I think mostly the foreign delegates who are residing in these hotels which were identified, and you know it. So there'll be two groups, there'll be two buses. The one bus will take those who reside at Kibo Palace, Crown Plaza, New Arusha Hotel, and Palace Hotel. By the way, the Arusha people are here. Is there still a hotel called the New Arusha Hotel? Or is it the Sheraton 4 Point by Sheraton? That's the 4 Point by Sheraton now. The name has changed. Okay, thank you. But here it's written New Arusha. That's one bus, you know, Kibo Palace, Crown Plaza, the 4 Point by Sheraton, and Palace Hotel. The other bus will take those staying at Tulia Boutique Hotel, SG Resort, Premier Palace, and Silver Palm Hotel. So after the cocktail, the buses will be here to collect you, take you back to your hotels.